This video is an introduction into Power3D. Power3D is a really great plugin for 3D Studio Max for generic design. The graphical interface of Power3D is node-based, so you don't need any programming skills, and it's a really great way of getting into parametric design. After you install Power3D and you reopen 3D Studio Max 2013 or higher, you see these three floating toolbars: Power3D Tools, Selection and Utilities, and you can also integrate them into your main menu of 3D Studio Max. Before you start working in Power3D, you should always check your units, and I recommend that display units and system units are always the same in these terms, centimeters, so you have a much better control when you work in Power3D. There are several ways of how to open Power3D. You can choose this button, select corresponding power nodes. This is a really good way of reopening Power3D, or just create a new parametric node, for example like this parametric mesh surface from scratch. And with this you can already do a lot of really nice things. You can also choose this button, create parametric array and parametric shape, and if you haven't selected any 3D objects and you use this button, you can create a shape and a parametric mesh from scratch. If you select a 3D object and choose the button create parametric array, then you have two options. You can just assign a controller in Power3D, but you can also just say create an array, and we talk about this a little bit more in detail. The array type can be copy and distance, and you can keep the original object. What is important, that you have the option of a one-dimensional, 2- and 3-dimensional array. We just have a quick look into 3D Studio Max array function to get a better understanding of 1-, 2- and 3-dimensional array. And we just select our objects. I go into my array function, and we see right now here that there's also something like a 1-, 2- and 3-dimensional array. I just go into my count of 5 and my preview, and if I move it 3 centimeters in my X dimension, then you can see a 1-dimensional array. If I go into my 2-dimensional array and also say I want to have a count of 5, and I enter 3 centimeters in Y direction, then you can see this is my 2-dimensional array, and the 3-dimensional array again, 5 objects and now 3 centimeters Z direction, and here you can see a 3-dimensional array, and this is the same way of how Power3D works. Okay, let's start with this really simple primitive object permit. I go into create parametric array. In this terms, we don't want to keep the original object. We can change the name, but I think permit is already quite good. And we want to create a 2-dimensional array with a count of 10 by 10 objects, means 100 objects. I go into create. Power3D is opening. And here we can see our first Power3D node based on our primitive objects permit. The interface of Power3D is based on 3 parts. Here on the right side you see the control panel, and you can already see that this is the name of our array. You can see the count 10 by 10 objects. If I just select my permit, you can also see that 100 objects are selected. They are all on top of each other. You can see the canvas, and the canvas is something where you can zoom in and out with your middle mouse wheel. And in the top area you can see the display toolbar. Let's zoom out a little bit, and here you can see that we already created 2 power nodes. The first one At the beginning of this video, it's my parametric mesh. And if I go on a right mouse click, and then you can see a lot of options. For example, this option delete. We want to delete this paranode, and I don't want to keep the original objects in my scene, so I say no. And the next thing we want to do, we want to look at this node a little bit more in detail. If I open my node under all, then you can see different properties, and these properties are identical with the transformation properties select and move, rotate, and scale in 3D Studio Max, and the specific properties of the individual object. If I select the property position with mouse click, then you can see that you can move the 100 objects in X, Y, and Z direction. And if you open under position this part of the menu, you can see that you can also change X, Y, and Z position individually, but you really have to keep an eye on that the top one is deselected. Otherwise you can't change the properties of the X direction. You can also say right mouse click and just say uncheck all, and now I can change the Y direction and of course also the Z direction. What you can see is that at X, Y, and Z direction there's a little S, and this just means it's a scalar value, a number, a float number for example, and all these scalar values together are a vector. And if you have different kind of properties together like position, rotation, and scaling, then this all comes together in the transformation as a matrix. So the matrix is a bunch of properties. The vector consists of scalar values, and the scalar values are just simple numbers you can actually enter. Whatever kind of individual properties your object will have, whatever kind of modifiers are on top of your objects, they will be all shown in your para node, and you can all control them with controllers. So let's start our first parametric design. I just go into position, and I just drag and drop from position one of these Y's, and what you can see is that it also selected my Y position, which I actually didn't want to do. So I just close it again and just say right mouse click uncheck all, and I do it again. So I just drag and drop one wire, I click again one mouse click, and my controller library will open. And we talk about this a little bit later. In my controller library you have a lot of options of mathematic controllers, and I just want to choose one controller. I just enter the word linear controller in my little menu, and double click on this linear controller. And what you can see is that we now attached our first controller. And if I look into 3D Studio Max and my viewport, you can already see that this is an array of 10 by 10 objects nicely put together. You can see that your parametric container nodes are in this grayish color, and your new controller is green. And you can select this with your mouse from left to right. You select everything in your yellow field. If you go from right to left, a little bit like AutoCAD, you select everything what's touched by your selection. You can move in and out. Obviously, you can just move these controllers, and obviously also move the nodes. You can also disconnect it again like this, and then connect it again, but here you have to see that you can only connect it when you see this green color. And if I go into matrix, or for example to a scalar value, I can't do it, because you can see that my controller has also the sign V like vector type, and so I can only connect it to the same type. You can change this actually. We talk about this a little bit later. Now it's just important that I can just reconnect it at the same position, and now we are fine again. For a better overview, it definitely makes sense always to rename your controller. For example, I just call this linear controller pyramid. And it's also like this: if you change the properties of your controller, we don't want to get too much into this linear controller, but for example, I can just use corner number 1. I can move this corner, for example, like this in X and Y direction. Then you have to update Para3D, otherwise you will not be able to see this. And this is something you do in this lower part of your control panel. You can update only your controller. You can also update all controllers plus your Paranode container, and just click on to update controller, and we can just see what's actually happening. All my elements are following my my object. You know, just select one other corner, for example, like this one, and I go into update. You can see that they're all nicely following my transformation. Let's uncheck our property position again and choose the object property height. And if I choose height, you can see that I can change my height, and we also want to add another controller on height. I can also just go on click here to add controller, and I want to choose one controller. This controller is called random controller. And I enter random controller in my field, and double click on a random controller, and it's already connected, but you can't see anything so far. You can see this color of this beige beige gray, and what you have to do is you have to update your controller. And before I update my controller, I just define the range of my random. I just want to have a height between 1 centimeter and 3 centimeters. And if I just go into update controller, then you can see that the height changed in a random way. And you can also see that from this beige gray color, it changed again to a nice green color. Also, when I update my random controllers, you can see that I get another randomized pattern. I can fix this pattern when I check the button use pattern. I update it one more time, and then that's done. Always when I update it again, it stays to the fixed pattern actually. What I wanted to do is I want to disconnect it to the height, and I also want to disconnect position. And I just want to connect my random controller to my position. And if I try this, I can't do this. We already learned this. What I have to do is I just have to change it from scalar to vector. And now I can connect it to position, and we just see what's happening. I have a minimum of 1 centimeter and a maximum of 3 centimeters in terms of position, and I update my random controller, and what we can see is that they all came together in X, Y, and Z direction with a distance of between 1 and 3 centimeters. And if I just enter minimum minus 10 centimeters and the maximum of plus 10 centimeters and update this again, you can just see that they're nicely provided. And if I go into my top view and I look at this, then you can see I just measure this quickly. Then there's a distance between 20 centimeters, and that's exactly the range we entered, minus 10 to 10 centimeters. If I right mouse click, just uncheck all my controllers, then I'm in the main menu of my container again, and I can then also change the count. Instead of 10, I can just go into 20 objects in the first dimension. You can also see that it just changes immediately. Also here. So you have a good control. You can start with a really low count of objects, and when you're fine with your basic parametric design, then you can just increase this number. You can only controllers only have an impact if they're really connected to your container node. And if you're interested in this, all these little containers are small pieces of code. If you go to this green button and white mouse click, then it opens a window, and you can see that there's always a small script behind this. Also on this linear controller, I just go right mouse click on this green button, and you can see a piece of code, and with your wire you can connect this piece of code with your container, and these containers are always related to 3D objects in your scene. Okay, let's have a closer look at the main display toolbar of Para3D. And here on the left you can load and save paraflows. Paraflow normally consists of a node container and different kind of node controllers. So these two are actually already a paraflow, and you can just save them. And it's really handy to work with these paraflows, because actually you can work on this with other projects. You can share this with other members of the community, so that's a really huge potential. You can also actually load paraflows. We just look at one nice example. If you download it from the internet page of Para3D, the MathServe program, and you can install it in Para3D. At the end of the day, you will find the folder in your Para3D install folder under MathServe. Then we just look at one example. I just go into a non-orientable surface. We already looked at this at the beginning, and I just open this client surface. Okay, when I zoom out a little bit, I can see that it's just on top of my other paraflow, so I just move them up in my display. And when I deselect it and just look at my viewport in 3D Studio Max, then I can't see my object because it's just hidden in this bunch of pyramids. So what I do, I just choose the para node container, which is actually related to the 3D objects in my scene. So always remember, the para controllers control the values of my containers, and the container is connected to my 3D object. I just select it, and here's one button. It's called Select Paramember, and if I do this, I can just move it in my viewport a little bit to the left, so we can already see our nice client bottle as a parametric flow element. If you want, you can play with the custom controllers a little bit, but it will always go back to this origin, so better take the others, the pyramids, and move them a little bit to the side. So if I just go and choose this custom parameter controller, you can move it and adjust it, and you always have to click Update Selected Controller, and you can see that it always moved again to the origin, and you can just play a little bit with this and just see what kind of impact this has to your Paraflow 3D object. There's a really important part in Para3D under this plus symbol. The first part are these containers, and remember, containers always related to 3D objects. You can create parametric array containers like we already did with our pyramid. You can use it for Boolean operations, you can use it for sectionings, you can have created new parametric mesh and parametric shape objects. We work on this in other videos. You can go into Para and just install new functionalities for Para3D, for example, like this disassemble tool, which is really excellent for digital production. There are things like this labeling, where you can just add labels to explain your para flows a little bit better. You can have a huge controller library. By the way, that's the same like when you go through your controllers to this, so it's the same way of getting to the controller libraries. And there's a nice bunch of add-ons where you can, for example, export to Excel. You can use it for animation. You can use the paint function for heat maps and all things like this. One container I would like to point out because it just helps the understanding of Para3D. It's this parametric array container, and I just move it to the top, and here you can see that you have to choose between copy, instance, and reference. I just go into copy, and then you have to select an object. And if I just draw a sphere, for example, like this, then I can just go into select object, which I did not right now, and then you are on the same level like what I did with my pyramid. So you can work with this, you can give this a count, or you can just already add controllers to this. You can, for example, just use the surface controller to project it on a surface, and for this I want to create a two-dimensional array by 10 by, let's start with 10 by 6, and just under transform I add a surface controller, which I just enter SURB surface controller, and then I just go into select object, and I just want to choose this client bottle, but I can't do it because you can only choose objects which actually have a edit poly modifier on top. I just add a edit poly modifier on top of my client bottle, and then I can just go into select and select my object. And if I just go into update selected controller, you can see that all my spheres are cluttered on the client bottle object. I'm not so happy with how they are cluttered because there are 10 objects in the U direction. I just want to change direction from UV to VU. I just change it here. I go into update, and this already looks much better. And what I also want to do, I want to increase the count. So I go again into my para container. My transform I've deselected, and when I deselected my transform, then I can just increase the count. I just say, for example, here's 25. And you can see that there's already a really nice bunch of spheres around my bottle, and then I can just add other controllers. For example, I select my radius. I can see that the radius size is nearly 1 centimeter. I can increase this and I can decrease it, and of course I can also just again add a modifier. For example, I just add a modifier like a pattern modifier. I just enter PAT like pattern modifier, and I want to have a pattern of 1 centimeters and 0.1 centimeters, and I update this, and then you can see you have a rhythm of 1 centimeter spheres and 0.5 centimeters, and you can also have it vice versa. I just enter 0.5 and 1 centimeters, and then you already have a really nice rhythm. These are just very few examples of how you probably can play with Para3D to get a little bit more into this program. Surface cladding is a really complex topic, so if you want to play with this, just use really simple objects like a torus knot or torus or something like a plane, because they have to be developable objects, and they need a continuity in their topology, which is quite complex at the beginning. Next to the plus symbol you have the minus symbol. I just go into this client bottle power flow again and just select one of my controllers and go into this minus, and you can see that you can remove only the node, you can remove the input of the nodes, you can remove the output of the nodes, and remove all containers. That's a really handy tool of working with Para3D. It's also like this, that next to this there's something like a copy and actually then also a paste function. If you have controllers which are used as instances, for example like this one right now, then you can just select it and you can just say you want to make it unique. Okay, and then out of one controller, which is actually an instance, you get two controllers, and these controllers are just copies right now. Okay, this one I just say right mouse click and delete again. The next buttons are quite obvious. You can zoom in, you can zoom out, you can also say zoom extend so you can see everything, and zoom selected, and this is really handy. What I like a lot is this navigation tool. If you switch this on, you have a really nice window and a nice control of all your para nodes. You can move this red rectangle and move to your para nodes, and you can also just switch this on default so you always have it in your scene. The next function is also quite handy. If you just select one para node, for example like this controller, you can just say turn off the node, and you can see that it's slightly transparent. And if I just go now on radius again, then you can see that you can have influence on the value, and just say probably I want to have a 0.5, and then all the spheres go to 0.5, and this controller doesn't have any influence of my value, of my radius value, and I can afterwards turn it on again. And if you turn it on, I first have to select it obviously, and then just turn it on, and then you can see that if I choose radius again, that it's again controlled by my my pattern controller. And if I go into update, then I'm back to my controller function. This is really handy if you can't remember the basic value of your function, or if you just want to play with this a little bit. And obviously you can also select several nodes and turn them off and turn them on again. So there are many ways of dealing with this. Another thing for a better overview is this one, expand items. If I just select everything and I just go into collapse item, you can see that they all go into my container, and that's really good for moving your container. We just look at this, what it looks like with my big para flow of my client bottle. I just go into collapse items, and then you see that it collapses only to the point which you actually still want to change in terms of parameters. So all my controllers, my custom parameter controllers, are still visible. Everything else is integrated into my para container, and if I just go into expand items, then you can just see that they're all there again. And I do the same here, expand items, and here we can see all our controllers. By the way, if you double click on your container, then it does the same. It's probably an even faster way of how to get there. Another thing which is handy is show all channels, and I just select my container right now and go into hide unused channels, and then you can only see the channels which are actually used. You can do the same, by the way, with my controllers. They were already hidden, and you can hide and unhide it. And there's one thing you should be probably aware of. If you open a new, or if you open an old Para 3D flow or scene, it always starts with this view of hide unused channels. So you always have to unhide it, otherwise you're confused and you don't know how to continue, because you can't see all these channel informations. Another handy tool is this arranged nodes. So if your nodes are a little bit in all directions, you can just select your whole para flow and just go into arranged nodes, and then they're much more compact together. And you can also do it like this. You just select them and just say right mouse click and just go into arranged, and so you can see there are also a lot of functions just with your right mouse click connected. This function reload properties is a really powerful tool, and we just look at this a little bit closer. I go again into show all channels, and just select only my para container. So the first thing you see is that you have this sphere, and if you click on sphere, you can exchange it to any other thing. For example, just create a box and just go on to this box, and it just asks you attempting to create a new array of box. Sum of all transformations may be removed. Would you like to continue? Yes, I would like to do this, and there are some properties like the radius, which is not a part of the box, which is obvious. And then it asks me, do you want to keep the previous ones? And I don't want to do this. And here we go. So we just exchanged it to the box. I just want to get back to my sphere, and there's one thing. In Para 3D there is no undo, and there is no function like this, because at the end of the day everything is parametric, and so you have to just change the parameters again, which I do right now. I just go again into the sphere, and now we are back to the sphere. I just want to delete all the boxes. Okay, and then I can go back again and connect my my controller to my radius, and I update again, and here we go, and we are back with my sphere. What I actually wanted to show you is also if you select this object sphere, you first see that Para 3D renamed it. If you draw a sphere in 3D Studio Max, there's a name like Sphere 001, but if you look at this in Para 3D, the name is changed, and you can see quite well what these objects are like. And the last number is my first dimension. This number, the second number from the back, is my second dimension, and this is my third number is my third dimension. So you always have a really good overview and understand of your actually para members. Another thing which is really interesting, and that's why we want to talk about this reload properties, with right mouse click you can select the first object of your parametric array. We just go back to my first example with a pyramid, and I just select my container of the pyramid. I just move my viewport to my bunch of pyramids, and I just select right mouse click my pyramid, and I will enter a band modifier in 3D Studio Max. And if I look at this, then you can just see what you can do. You can just change the direction and actually the angle. The angle I'm really interested in, so direction will stay. And when I did this, it's not connected to all the other ones, to all the other parametric array members. So what you have to do is you select again your first member, which I did right now, and then you just go into reload properties. And after you did this, you can see that all your other objects also have this band modifier. And what you can also see that there's this band modifier a part of your parametric container. Also with this, you can already see that your container is really long. And just imagine you add some edit polys and it's a really long container. So this tool of show all channels or hide unused channel becomes really important. If I go into my band function, then I just remember there were some things I would like to play with, and this is especially this angle. If I just select the angle, you can see that the value is so far 0, and I can just change it, for example, to 15, and all my pyramids are moving. And once I figured this out, I can just add a controller, and I just open my controller library, and in my list I just choose this random controller, double click, and I enter a value from 0 to probably 50. I update, and we can see that that all my pyramids have different kind of angles related to my band modifier. And really important, I just choose right mouse click from my container my first member. For this I have to deselect. I say uncheck all, and now I can right mouse click, select it. I just added a modifier on top in 3D Studio Max. I just went into reload, and all the properties and the modifier are a part of my container list, and then I can just change the parameters and play with new controllers. We look at the very few last things in my main toolbar. This one we already discovered. It's select members. So if you select a container, for example like this one, and you go into select paramember, then here you chose this client bottle, and it's always a container you have to select. You can't do it via any controller. Then it's deselected. And I just go again and select it. There's also another nice thing. If you say, go into this button and say select paranode, and just click on any objects, then you can just see that it moves to the paranode which is connected to my 3D objects in 3D Studio Max. The very last things at the end is here you get information of what kind of version you used, and if you go into the preferences, you can change very few things. You can switch on show navigation box at startup, so you always have this nice navigation box, and you can also switch on automatically zoom on new nodes. And we just see what this does. I just activate it. I go into save my settings. And if I close it and, for example, add a new controller here, for example, this bitmap controller, then you see that it's always moving towards my controller, and this gives you a better view, but you always also have to constantly move, zoom out, so it's really related to your habits in terms of how to use the program. In the last minutes of this video, we want to have a deeper look at this control panel. You can also hide and show the control panel, and we just added this bitmap controller, and if I scroll down with most of the controllers, you can see this controller output. In this terms you get an error. The color of this controller changes to red. We didn't have it so far, and the reason for this is it just shows you already that I didn't select a bitmap. So what I have to do is I just go up this controller, click on this texture map, and just can choose any bitmap I want, and I just use this checker to make it a little bit faster. By the way, the bitmap controller is a really nice controller. You can do a lot of amazing things with this. And if I go down again, you can see all the values produced via your controller related to your object. In this terms is only 0 and 1 for white and black. And that's also quite good to have a better understanding of your controller actually. If you select your main container, then you can just use these fields on top and just enter, for example, like A, RA, and you can just search for properties, and you can also just say that you want to select them, which is a quite handy tool. And this one, if I just now select my surface controller again and update my surface controller, you can see that it moves to green again. But if, for example, this is not green but red or yellow, then you just click on this and you can update your code, and this also most of the time solves issues in terms of your Para 3D flow. This function is a little bit like the material editor. You have your parent, which is actually in this terms my container, and you have your children. And if you choose one of the children and you just go into up, then it just selected the parent of the child, and that's also a way a little bit like the material editor in 3D Studio Max of how to navigate. There is this auto update function, and I will just show it to you in our example with our pyramids. I just go into my pipette and just select the node of my pyramids, which is actually this one, and I disconnect my random controller again and connect again a linear controller, LEN, linear controller, double click. And then you can see that my pyramids are all in a nice arranged in a nice surface. If you choose auto update, then you can change the values in your control panel, and you don't always constantly have to update it. So be aware of this function that sometimes there's a lot of calculation in the background and your program doesn't run smooth anymore. There's one even stronger function. This is this Animate function. I definitely wouldn't recommend using it on a regular basis, but if you choose your container and one property is selected, you can just switch on enable dynamic and you can animate. And you can already see that this little button is red, and I can just select these corner types, and if I move them, you can see that my whole surface is following. And in terms of control animation, that's a really nice feature, but don't forget, this is a lot of performance actually for your computer. Okay, let's go into my controller library again. You can see that some controllers are with black typeface, some are with gray typeface, and it's like this. The gray ones are the ones you can't use for this property, and you can also just say show and hide incompatibles, so you only see the black ones, which is quite handy, so you always know what you actually can use. Also here you have the chance to enter the first letters to find your controllers in a faster way. You can go into details and you will get some explanations for your controller. You can just say you want to have a new controller, or you just go into scene and you just use one of the controllers you already produce in your scene. And for this, it's really good and really important if you give your controllers proper names, so you have a much better way of working with them. There's this button Purge, and if you click on Purge, you will delete all your controllers which are actually not used with any of your power flows, for example like this linear controller or this random controller, and I just go to Purge, and then they're gone. Which is really good in terms of cleaning your scene. You can also load controllers from power flows, or you can also save controllers as your own Power 3D library. I hope this video was helpful for you to get into the basic functionality of Power 3D. I would like to thank Ali Torabi, the programmer of Power 3D, for his really great program and for his really great input of knowledge, and thanks for watching.